Math 083 Final Exam Review, Problem 26, Parts B and D. We are going to solve both of these equations. We will attempt them through factoring. If factoring doesn't work, we will try the quadratic formula. If you plan on solving a quadratic equation through the method of factoring, then you need to get the equation in standard form, which means you will push all of the terms over to one side of the equal sign. The other side of the equal sign will be 0. I will subtract 6x. We have 4x squared minus 3x equals 7. Getting 0 will require a second step, subtracting 7 on both sides. We have 4x squared minus 3x minus 7 equals 7 minus 7 is 0. Let's see if this quadratic factors. We use the AC method. A times C is 4 times negative 7, negative 28. We must find two numbers that multiply to negative 28 that add up to the value of B, which is negative 3. Just by mere coincidence, those two numbers are 4 and negative 7. So we rewrite the left-hand side of the equal sign with the same x squared term, but instead of negative 3x, we will make two terms using these coefficients. Both x terms, 4x minus 7x, which do add up to negative 3x. And bring down this minus 7, equals 0. Now we factor by grouping. We look at the first two terms. The greatest common factor is 4x. We write 4x times x plus 1. Now we group the second two terms together. It is always the case that it will factor with the same parenthetical factor as we had here. This x plus 1 will certainly be repeated. Such is guaranteed by the fact that we were able to successfully fill out this chart. So I write down this x plus 1 parenthetical factor first, knowing it will be there. And then I ask myself, what would it take to multiply against the x and against the 1 to make these two terms here? Negative 7 does the trick. So now, how does the factoring shape up? We have the repeated x plus 1. That makes up one factor. The other factor is made up of a 4x and this minus 7. We set x plus 1 equal to 0. Subtracting 1 on both sides, we get our first solution, x equals negative 1. We write 4x minus 7 equals 0. Add 7 to both sides. Divide by 4. We get x equals 7/4. The second solution. Let's move on to part D now. Again, we're going to try to solve this one by factoring. So we need to rewrite the equation so that it is in standard form, which means 0 will be on one side of the equal sign. If I add 24 to negative 24, those add and give me 0, which will be on the right side. Of course, I have to add 24 to this side of the equation. We have 3p squared minus 6p plus 24 equals 0. Now there is a greatest common factor of 3. I will factor that out. We have 3 times the quantity p squared minus 2p plus 8 equals 0. We are going to try to factor p squared minus 2p plus 8. A is 1, c is 8, 1 times 8 is 8. We need two numbers that multiply to 8 that add up to the middle coefficient, which is negative 2. Now you might be thinking 4 and or negative 4 or 2 or negative 2 are involved, but it would take negative 4 plus 2 to make negative 2. Yet when you multiply negative 4 times 2, you don't get 8, you get negative 8. You can try some other combinations, but no such factoring with real numbers works. Therefore, p squared minus 2p plus 8 does not factor with real numbers. So we will use the quadratic formula. And it's enough to solve this quadratic here, set equal to 0. So p equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2 times a. Now b is negative 2, so we have this negative of negative 2 plus or minus square root of b squared. Since b is negative, we must wrap it in parentheses to square it. Minus 4 times a is 1, times c is 8. All divided by 2 times a, 2 times 1. So we have positive 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 32, all divided by 2. We have 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 28, all divided by 2. Let's take a moment and look at the square root of negative 28. Since negative 28 is 4 times negative 1 times 7, follows that the square root of negative 28 is equal to the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 7. Therefore, the square root of negative 28 is equal to 2 times I times square root of 7. So P equals 2 plus or minus 2I square root of 7 all divided by 2. We can distribute this division. 2 divided by 2 plus or minus 2I square root of 7 divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. We have 1 plus or minus. These 2's divide down to 1, and we have I square root of 7. So there are two solutions. P equals 1 plus I times the square root of 7, and P equals 1 minus I times the square root of 7. Complex conjugate solution pair.